I'd like to call this meeting of the Legal and Finance Committee of the City of Rapid City to order on June 15th, 2022 at 12:30. And first up is roll call and determination of quorum.
Drew?
Here.
Lehman? Here. Nordstrom?
Here.
Weifenbach? Solomon?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Okay, next up is adoption of the agenda. I need a motion. Moved by Lehman, second by Solomon. All in favor? The agenda is adopted. Now it's time for general public comment, a time for the members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present, and we will have one request form. I'm going to say Mark Millar. Is that right, or Miller? Okay.
All right, doing this, my time started.
Okay.
Bear with me as I kind of ramble on here. I have a few concerns, but mainly I live in North Rapid City. I got 3 properties in North Rapid City. I came and talked to you guys about a month and a half ago about the lack of graffiti mediation that we've come to in the city. I cornered a council person who couldn't get away from me, and they told me that that was kind of due to the mayor. And I don't know how much of that, and I don't care. But I know we got an issue in North Rapid. And I'm going to tell you this again. They're tagging on top of each other. So basically, when one is making their statement to the public, their enemy's coming along and tagging on top of them, and that's just creating a problem. We have a problem in Rapid City in general, from the downtown core, which you all love and center on, to North Rapid, which I love and center on. We've got a problem in this city. And it's getting worse. The graffiti's getting worse. Just drive down any street. So when we can't mediate the graffiti in this city, how are we going to get back the 100 or so guns that have been stolen and everything else that's going on? We couldn't protect a landfill site up here with dumpsters. That became a concern because the city couldn't protect that, and so they had to do away with it. But I live in North Rapid, and I don't know these forums. I was actually here last Tuesday. That's why I hope you'll understand why I ramble on, because it's hard for me even to get here on the right day. I don't want to be concerned with you guys. I got a couple businesses of my own to run. I spent all of last year recovering from having 2 hip surgeries, and I'll get back to that. But Tuesday, I went and voted at a very nice church in North Rapid, First Assembly of God. Been here a long time, got a great history of helping people. And I was shocked to see the doors were broken at the voting pools. And I asked one of the poll workers, I said, so they threw rocks through your doors? Because if you go through North Rapid and count the plyboarded up windows, you'll be shocked by the amount of glass breaking that's been going on there. And she said, no, they hadn't thrown rocks through the doors of the Assembly of God Church. They shot them out. So this is escalating. That was on Tuesday. Monday, I had the police at my house digging a bullet out of the front of my siding. I don't know where it came from, the projectile and whatnot. It lends a lot of questions. Nonetheless, it was in the front of my siding. So now I've got a beautiful home that I've been working on for 20 years to try to make Rapid more presentable. And I got a bullet hole in the front of my house. A month ago, it was a rock. And it was my neighbor's window and my window. It was the guy around the corner. They spray painted his truck. The houses around the other 2 corners, they broke the windows out. And I'm out of time. But if you'd indulge me, I'd just like to say one more thing.
Go ahead.
Last year when I had my hips replaced, I spent a whole bunch of time using a walker. Everywhere in this city, people met me at the doorway. They met me with my groceries. They helped me. They opened doors. We have a beautiful city here. Every citizen in this city helped me when they ran into me, except 2 street urchins who chose to take the opportunity to see that I was handicapped to try to rough me up for money. And that was right downtown here. That was at a local store right down here by the Concrete Fish. These guys were in their 50s. It was in the middle of the day, and they were drunken hogs. So we have a problem. Just turning our heads ain't going to make it go away. It's got to be dealt with. But I want to stop digging bullets out of the front of my house. We need to get rid of the graffiti in North Rapid.
Usually we don't respond to people that make the statements, but I do just have a couple comments. The landfill and the removal of that recycle bin was, yeah, it was being abused, but also we're, like any other business, we are having a major problem with staffing. And that includes our landfill and those employees that help us with trash. So that's our explanation to you there. It was being abused, but for all intents and purposes, we would have kept it going. And then I could tell that you called in to the police when you had some of these problems. I just don't know if you're drawing attention to the graffiti that's going on. We have more police time now thanks to Journey On, which is a group that's really helping with the street people by the creek, and have saved us, what was it, 3,000 visits, you guys? What was it? 3,000 visits by policemen, because not all of these incidents need a gun. So we have a group of Indian young people that go down there and help with the trauma and some of the things these people are dealing with on the side of the creek. They might just need a ride. They might need, some food. They might need water. And so we're taking care of that in a different way to release our police from doing that kind of work and doing the kind of work that we need in North Rapid. So we're moving towards some types of answers to some of your questions. Okay, just one thing. Okay, go ahead.
As we work that way, I hope that we're trying to teach these people that it's not all about hate. Because basically that's their problem. They hate everybody. 2 days ago, I had an event in a business that I owned where a young man came in. He started the incident by telling our clerk that she looked at him. He threw food at her, attacked her and the other employee verbally, then busted 2 display cases and grabbed the third one and ran out the door. And this is doing business in Rapid City in the middle of the day. And I do see the police out there in an increased presence there with the satellite site, and I appreciate that very much.
Hear people like you, and we're working on it.
Yes,
Okay.
and we need to continue to. But we really need to get that graffiti. Look at the abutments to the Iron Bridge on East Boulevard North. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, we understand the problem. We do.
You can see where the Crips have crossed out the Bloods and rode in over there. There's somebody running around town, long live Leon. That's written everywhere, and that's got to be a call out to one of the victims from one of the other crimes. You guys can look that date up and tell who the hell that is.
Thank you.
It's everywhere.
It's a situation that we continue to work on. So, and I think we're making some progress, actually. So thank you for your comments, Mr. Millar. So now, with that, public comment is now closed, and we go on to the consent items. Anything you guys would like to remove on the committee here? Item 2. Anything else, anyone? That's it? Okay. Item 9. I need a motion to approve the remainder of the items with the exception of 2 and 9.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, are you having the department heads give a summary of their items beforehand?
No, I'm not. I'm going back to the way I used to do it. In fact, this is the last meeting I'll run. So it'll be up to you guys to figure out how you'd like to do this. So Mayor's items number 2 and then item number 9. I need a motion.
Well, in that case, I'm gonna pull number 3, 4, and 8, so I can't hear from the department heads then?
Sure. I think that's the way to do it. Meetings are about the exceptions, so I think that when we pull these things, that's the way I'd like to see them run. So, yeah. Anyway, so approve the remainder of the items with the exception of 2, 3, 4, 8, and 9. Motion? Moved by Lehman. A second? Second by Nordstrom. All in favor? Okay, and that that approves the agenda. So we go to Mayor's item number 2, authorize City of Rapid City employees to receive an additional cost of living adjustment, COLA, in July of 2022 to account for the unusually high inflation rates. And we'll turn it over to Mayor Allender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are recommending a cost of living increase for city employees across the board, but this is in direct response to the ever-rising inflation and our inability through the typical negotiation processes to keep up with that inflation. So I emailed a letter out, and there's a letter attached to this agenda item. And I hope you can see from the graphs in there that the goal we're shooting for is to take this calendar year, 2022, and get every city employee up to 7.9%. Some employee groups have received cost of living increases thus far, some 5%, some less. And so we are filling in the example of a group that's received 5%, we're asking for another 2.9% to make everyone up 7.9% at the end of the year. So inflation is up now over 8%. In most cases, these increases could not anticipate the magnitude or the reality of the rise in inflation over this past year. And so the financial impact of this, as you can see also from the letter, the financial impact is significant. But the alternative is to continue to lose employees. We currently are having great difficulty hiring employees, and this puts our service delivery at risk. The number of employees showing interest in important positions in Rapid City is just very concerning, because just a few years ago, if we might have had 100 applications for a single position. Now we may have 3 or 5, and certainly not all those are qualified. So positions are staying open longer, and what's been especially obvious this last 6 months is that not only are we seeing openings in general, but they're the wrong openings. They're the critical positions within departments that are affecting things like landfill operation hours. We're all familiar with that situation. Well, that's happened also in finance, and it's on the verge of happening in many other departments. So this is a pretty significant financial investment. For the remainder of 2022, and we're recommending that this takes place immediately for the remainder of 22, the funding source for that would be undesignated cash. Starting in 2023, that increase would become part of the wage and benefit budget. So I know there's a question that's come up a time or two in showing some concern about a possible economic downturn. Well, that is possible. In fact, it's likely that there will be some type of economic adjustment. It's also likely that Rapid City will not experience it as dramatically as many other places in the country. We've seen evidence of this with our own eyes in the past. But we're at the point where we have to invest in our employees so that we can make investments into our service delivery, so that we can invest into our community. And so I'm not telling you this is going to be easy or convenient to budget for in the future, but it is more convenient and more affordable than seeing these openings and having service disrupted and having the council and other department heads taking the brunt of these complaints and general dissatisfaction about some of the service. Mr. Millar talked about some of it today. These are real issues. It's also notable that in the Gallup polling, every year in the past, the reasons employees leave wages, the reason employees leave jobs, wages was always down to number 3 or 4 on the list. It was feeling appreciated and having proper direction and so on. In this last year, wages is the number one reason employees leave positions. Inflation is costing everyone additional money, and it's going to have to cost this government organization additional money to keep our current service, our scope of services, and the quality of services we have. So currently at this moment, just a point in time, in public safety alone, police and fire, we have 40 open positions. This is 22 positions in the police department, 18 in fire. All total, we have upwards of 60 openings in the position or in the city, but I'm telling you, they're currently, they've been consistently the wrong openings. The openings where there's very few people performing a certain type of task. Going back to the example of people who know how to operate bulldozers at the landfill, there's only a handful of those, and when half of them left, that presented us with a problem. That's the trend we're facing right now. So I'll stand for questions.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Sure, you knew I had to be the first one.
Well, you're the only one so far.
Okay. Mayor, I was reading through your letter that you sent to us, and it's on the agenda, so if anybody wants to get a chance to read it. But I think I think I'm on page 2, looking at that visual chart that you presented, the line graph going horizontally. Pretty well explains the differences between the different divisions or departments that are going to get, if this is approved, what kind of adjustments will be made. All the way from 0 to, I believe the highest one that I saw was 5.4% on top of what they currently made. So I think a little bit clearer explanation is in order to explain to the employees that not everybody's going to get the 7.9%. Some are going to get less than that, and so just a little better clarification on what that engenders or what that means for everyone as far as the employees.
Okay, yeah, we've been in contact with the employee groups, the unions, to let them know what we're proposing. I think there's a general understanding, but certainly, as you said, this one particular graph, the horizontal bar graph, is very revealing about what the intent of this whole proposal is. It's to get everyone evened up with the rate of inflation, or approximately the rate of inflation by the end of the year. So we'll carry that out. We'll carry out more communication on it.
Thank you. And then going into the budgeting process, part of this, the proposed COLA increase is looking like almost $1 million for this second half of this year. And then if I'm using the math correctly, using the full 2023 budget, round numbers, kind of double that number? Is that kind of what, am I saying that correctly?
The total for the full calendar year 2023 is 1.9 million. 1.46 million of that's in general fund and 440,000 in enterprise funds.
Thank you. And then it's one of those communication things that need to be approached as well. So now I lost track where I was going to go with this. And then the other part had to do with, sorry, Madam Chair, if I may, I'll come back
Okay.
for the moment.
Jason, are you going to get, okay. Jason Solomon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we want to reward our employees. Why we unanimously approved a compensation study. It's why we provided bonuses to our talent in the last year. I guess I'm all for competitive salaries. I say yes to competitive salaries, but I do wonder if a one-size-fits-all approach is the best approach. Seems to me like the best approach would be to take each position, what's the market value of that position, have salary ranges for them, union and non-union. Some of them negotiated, some of them not, but to make sure that it's based on data and that we aren't artificially inflating anything for while we may not have the peaks and valleys that the rest of the nation has, we will have ups and downs in our market. And my concern is what the cause and effect of this might be down the road. For example, if our revenues don't meet projections in a year or two, then we have to eliminate positions, and that's a painful discussion as well, because our best investment is our people, but it's also the priciest one. And so I think there's a balance here, but I guess I would give you an opportunity to give your feedback on what my concerns might be.
Yes, thank you. Taking each position and evaluating what the appropriate range is, given our region and their scope of work, et cetera, would be part of the future wage study. The data on inflation is very clear, and that's all we're responding to in this. Every single city employee who was working here in January or in the middle of last year is now effectively earning less than they were back then. Today they're earning less than they were a year ago because of the cost of goods and services that they're forced to buy in order to live their lives. So we're only responding to inflation, and that data is something that's very clearly articulated. In the future, in the very near future, we'll have a non-union wage analysis. Starting in the 2023 budget, we'll have union group wage analyses, starting with AFSCME, I believe, will be the first, and then we'll do them in successive years for three years running, take a year off, and then start back with the non-union and go through the whole cycle again. So there is a plan. It's not yet been presented to you in the budget, but there's a plan to continually do market analyses on the wages and benefits.
I do think if we have positions that are underpaid, we need to take care of that. I think as a philosophy, and you know this, and I've supported it with decisions, we want to be competitive. I do wonder if we tie inflation to salaries. Those are actually a little bit different because sometimes the inflation rate might be less than what a normal salary increase might be. So for example, if you have an inflation rate that's, you have salary increases of 3 to 4% a year, let's just say, and inflation rates are below that, that could work to the employee's benefit. So sometimes when you do that, you have to take the good with the bad. It's a tough one for me. I have to chew on it. I probably would recommend we move this to council without recommendation, just for more of that discussion, because I think it's a significant investment, definitely worth it to get the right people in place. That's why I'm all about what the market says a value of an employee should be. That would include whatever the cost of living is. And obviously this inflation is, brought to us by bad policy, and bad policies have consequences, and we're dealing with it. And I don't want to exacerbate that by jumping the gun in case this inflation, levels out a little bit, and in some cases we're hearing about recessions and all these other things, and how that will impact us locally, I'm not sure. But all that to say, I'm a yes for competitive wages. I'm just not sure that one size fits all blanket increases for everybody, regardless of position, is the best approach. Response?
Well, I think I think in making that statement, you're overlooking the data that we do have in front of us, regardless of how it got here. You can't pick a random city employee and go into their home and learn that they're not making less money than they were a year and a half ago. Everything costs more. This is so we're basing this on cold, hard data, not only the national inflation rate, but the adjusted regional inflation rate. And so those percentages are the same, a 5% increase in inflation and a 5% increase in wages even that out. So you know, that's really the main point here, is that we're dealing with a set of data that is universally accepted across the board. And we are also relying on data from past salary studies that this council has funded in an effort to find market rates for employee positions. That's the position they're in right now. The inflationary variance between those wage ranges is really something that is experienced from year to year. Typically, you would see a cost of living raise be handled separately from a grade adjustment, or from a pay grade adjustment based on qualifications and duties and that sort of thing. So I think we're talking about the same thing, only slightly in a different way, but I think you're going to have a tough time, and I would have a tough time picking out a city employee and telling them they're the one that doesn't deserve to have their wages adjusted so they can continue to buy bread and milk and gasoline.
To be clear, I think every employee should be paid competitively. Obviously, this inflation is like rain. It falls on all of us. And those who make the least, I think it impacts the greatest. It is terrible, obviously. And we want to try to make sure that everybody is treated fairly in this process. So I do think we kind of want the same thing. We might be coming at it from a, you know, I might have more of a private sector view of it and vice versa, but I do think we all want our employees to be taken care of. They're awesome, and obviously we want to make sure that they're treated well. I'll yield for now.
Community Development Director Vicki Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I really liked your comments. I think they were all-inclusive in a lot of what we talked about when we sat down with the mayors as directors in making a decision to bring this item forward. You saw at one of your last meetings the Gallagher study, and you unanimously supported doing that study that really does go to the analysis of range individually for positions specific to non-union. But again, as the mayor indicated, we're looking at union positions, hopefully the start of the first year. For what we have on the table today, the cost of living, the COLA, is to ensure that every employee has the same buying power that they had a year ago, or what they had at the first of the year, so that when we're out there buying that gallon of gas or that gallon of milk, that we still have the same amount of cash left over to live life as we have worked hard to secure. We are in part requesting this in order to retain those employees that acknowledge that there are so many companies within our community and the state, as a prime example, that have taken into account the inflation, have already granted 8% COLAs, and people are looking. I think the mayor, in just acknowledging the openings that we have, is a direct result. Every week we see a valued employee hand in their notice because they're leaving us for a job that pays them more than they can make here, because that company took into account where Rapid City is today. And so just to kind of put a tourniquet on what we're experiencing, the request to go to the 7.9% COLA across the board, we feel is still under what the national average is for inflation, but it would give us a good competitive standing with other competitive companies in our community, and again, looking at what the state has already done.
Okay, I'm going to just jump in here before Richie Nordstrom will speak again. And as the mayor said, there were like maybe 5 people applying for jobs, and used to be like 100 people. I remember when it used to be really, man, if you could get a city job, you were set, you know. People really tried to get the city jobs because of the benefits and the pay and all that stuff. To hear now that it's 3 or 5 people that are applying and some of them aren't even qualified is quite an eye-opener. Also, another comment that was made, I think it was Jim Gilbert, our technology information director, said that one of his employees was thinking of leaving because the competitive job was at McDonald's, you know? And that's horrible, that we would be losing someone to a job at Mickey D's or Wendy's. Nothing wrong with those places, but, you know, I mean, we have trained people here that we're paying the same as some of the drive-in positions. So, yeah, I think we have to make some kind of an adjustment. That'll be interesting to see how we get through that, because a lot of people out in our city aren't getting those kinds of raises, aren't getting that kind of equity. You know, they just have to live on what they're going to get, and that's it. I know it's fortunate that we have the power and the wherewithal to kind of do this at this point, because we're the beneficiaries of tax increase income. But that's not going to probably go on forever. But for right now, we're able to do this, and I think that's probably a good thing. But once again, I could go to recommending this to council without recommendation, like Jason was saying, because we do have to talk about this a little bit more. So right now, I'll recognize Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to make the motion that we approve this, item number 2, and whether I get a second or not, I appreciate.
Okay, motion by Nordstrom, second by Lehman.
Retain the floor. Thank you. I think we need to send a message to the employees as a committee that we support them. And with the message going to the full council without a recommendation shows that we're kind of wishy-washy about supporting the employees. I feel strongly that we need to show support as a committee to tell the employees that we're behind them, we support them. And instead of just talking the talk, we can do the walk as well. Mayor, or if I may ask another question, or Mr. Stroud, can you share with us the number of employees? Mayor, you mentioned that the police and fire were something like 40 individuals who are open positions right now. Have you got a count on how many positions are open in the city right now?
As far as I can tell, and some of this is estimate, but we're today about 60 positions.
Thank you. And then, do you have does anybody have a chance to give us a summary, a brief summary of what the exit interviews are telling you to come up with this data that you presented to us?
Yeah, to the extent we have it. I mean, not all employees will conduct an exit interview, but yes.
And so, again, just to emphasize, the number one issue is being that it's primarily wages. And I've heard some other stories amongst the employees that they can go to work for another enterprise and the workload is drastically different as well. Because a lot of our folks are wearing sometimes 2 and 3 hats for the same position. Does that come up in your exit interviews as well?
Well, it comes up, Nick can speak to the exit interviews, but I can speak to anecdotally talking to employees who are considering other jobs. They're being offered more money. They know from other people working at the different organizations there's less work to do, and that's especially true in public safety, but it's true in other fields as well.
I know, especially in our public safety part of it, so that's where I hear it. So, Mr. Stroud, if you don't mind.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and like the mayor had said, all exit interviews are anecdotal. They're offered to every employee, and not everybody takes it. But what we have seen that's different, and it just happened to us this morning, is that people are leaving for more money. Usually that wasn't the case. A lot of times it would be for lack of ability to promote. We have some small departments that there's not a lot of promotion opportunity, or people want to try something different. We've had some people that were police officers that decided they wanted to go work at the landfill. You know, that didn't have anything to do with money. But anecdotally, I'm talking to my team, and we are hearing that wages are the key driver. Like I said, we had a key individual put in their notice today, and that was their one and only reason. I need to make more money for my family. And so, yes, again, we don't have any scientific data, but it's just all anecdotal, but we are hearing that more than we've heard in the past.
Sure. I appreciate my colleague, Alderman Solomon, bringing up some of these points, because it reminded me of what we had to do during the 2008 Great Recession and how the handling of the employees had to be done at that time because the numbers were going the wrong way as far as deflation. Everything was going into a recession at that point, and a lot of departments had to cut back on a lot of different things, but they were able to keep the employees. Granted, a lot of them were frozen, but they were able to retain all those employees. One of the other things that I've been noticing too is that we've gone through a great retiring as well. The biggest thing that I've been noticing is that people are leaving the city rather early through retirement. There's a great number of employees that are doing that, taking advantage of that. Now we're having to face this great rehiring, and that's getting to be more of a challenge with the wage structure that we have in place right now. So again, gentlemen of the committee, it's important that we as the committee show that we are not ambivalent about this, that we need to show them that we support the employees with something to help them out through this. Hopefully it's a temporary situation on the inflation side. With that, I hope you will consider approving this and sending a good and positive message to the employees. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, with that, we go back to Jason Solomon.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear, I absolutely support our employees. In fact, it's because I care so much that I even raise the questions, because what I don't want is a situation where we are in an economic downturn and we have to let them go. I don't want us to put in that situation. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's why I feel like it's good to ask these questions of our mayor who's presenting this. It's because I do care. I don't want you to go. I want you to be paid competitively. The bottom line is this: we want the same outcome. Mayor and I actually agree, and Richie, it sounds like you agree. We want the same outcome, and that is that our employees are taken care of and that they're paid well. I just wanted to be careful that when you instantly boost your personnel budget by 8%, and then you have an economic downturn and you have to freeze or reduce staffing, that hurts families really bad. And I'm just trying to think in the long term. So I know this is a short-term issue, hopefully a short-term issue, let's say that. But just in the long term, a lot of families can be impacted. And so in thinking at an executive level, sometimes you have to think not just for what's happening right now, but what's going to happen down the road. So I'll support this in the sense that I think the outcome of what we want is that every employee is paid a competitive wage and that they're taken care of. My questions do remain about our decisions today and how they impact tomorrow. Maybe I'm not as optimistic as I should be. I'm actually cautiously optimistic about the future of Rapid City in the sense that I think we're going to weather the storms that are coming up. But the only reason I bring these questions up and why I ask these questions, and I really appreciated Vicky's clarifications as well, because it helps me understand that we actually want the same thing, just wondered about the one-size-fits-all approach. So I won't belabor the point, but hopefully it was worth asking those questions and having this discussion, so that, because I think a lot of folks might share similar questions as me. Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a vote soon, but I just had one more comment. I felt bad after I said the comment about the drive-ins. I think they're finally paying what people are worth at $13 or $14 an hour. So that's the end of my comments. Right now we have a motion on the floor to approve. All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. So we'll take this up again on Monday night. Number 3, Fire Department. Authorize staff to apply for and accept continuation of Federal/Bureau of Land Management's Community Assistance Program for a minimum of $125,000 for 2022 and an equal or greater amount in the subsequent 4 years for a total of up to $1 million. And Jason, I think you pulled this one, so
I
the
did.
chair
Just
goes
wanna
to
give-
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to give the fire chief opportunity to give us a brief summary.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this grant is a continuation grant. I think we've been doing it since 2013. It provides job opportunities for veterans to join our department in the wildfire mitigation crew. So they're working on the survivable space initiative, tree cutting, thinning, that type of thing. So this is just a continuation of that grant moving forward for the next 5 years, allowing us to open up positions and hire. And there's no, shouldn't say no, there's the matching from the city is Lieutenant Eric O'Connor's wages, which is a big portion of his job in our prevention division, fire and life safety, is wildfire mitigation and the survivable space initiatives we have with our wildland urban interface. Think M Hill interfacing with the rest of the city, so forest and city coming together. And that's the big key to that. There are no other strings attached. We don't have anything other than to provide what we've said we're going to, which is hire veterans and put them to work in this capacity.
Thank you. At a committee level, can I make a motion even though I've already spoken?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
We can get another person
Alright.
to do that. Thank you. I think some people do, but I'm going to wait for a motion from someone else. Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
Madam Chair, if I may make that motion to approve this item.
Motion by Nordstrom, and second by Solomon to approve.
Thank you. A question for Chief Culberson, please.
Yes.
That demonstrates what is taking place with that. Are you doing something similar with that grant funding?
I guess I can't answer that question if we're doing something similar because I'm not aware of what the police department's doing. I haven't looked at that portion, but definitely something I can look into and find out and see if we can do that. Our grants, they're fairly limited. We don't have a whole bunch of them. Some of them are high dollar ones, including the SAFER grant that we're working under now from the federal government. This one is tied to other grants that we utilize for the thinning, and where community members can request those grants through the city, those dollars to do the thinning on their property. And we work closely with, of course, the Bureau of Lands Management, but parks also. So
Thank you, Chief.
I'll take a look into that and see if there's some way to do that and maybe emulate what they're doing.
If you don't mind, just checking into it, because what I'm hearing is that some of the grant money that's coming in is dark money. Disinfection through the sunshine effect. We can avoid that type of conversation, so
Sure.
thank you. I yield.
Okay, so I see no more comments in the queue. This is a motion to approve. All in favor? All opposed? And the motion carries on item 3. Item number 4, acknowledge the following volunteers for workers' compensation purposes, and this is the Finance Department. Stephanie Kirchmeyer, Library. Marianne Fisher, RSVP Plus, and Gail Renz, RSVP Plus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I pulled the item.
Oh, yes, I see
I'll
your
make a
name up
motion
there.
to acknowledge, if I can get a second, and give just Pauline an opportunity to speak on any of her items or any of the other ones. Is there anything that you thought the council needed to be more cognizant of?
So 4 is standard, and the only other thing that I would point out is if you look at our sales tax through April, our month-to-month and our cumulative is starting to decrease over what we saw last year, which is not unusual. I will say, though, that it is currently not keeping up even with the inflation rate of 8.6% that I just read today. So that does mean that people are starting to slow down their spending.
Well, and we know with things going on at Yellowstone and the impact it might have on our tourism, hopefully not too bad, but you never know, and the price of fuel, that affects our sales tax revenue, all things that we have to think about. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Have you got a motion?
Yeah, we got
Okay.
a motion to acknowledge by Solomon.
Thank you. First, if I may, is to present my kudos and congratulations to our Chief Financial Officer of the Year, Pauline Sumption. Congratulations on making that. Way to go.
That's for
You
the
deserve
state,
it.
correct?
That is from the state, yes. Yes.
Got clear.
And the South Dakota Municipal League was you'll have to share a little information about it that when it was appropriate. You don't have to do it now, but the interesting part for me is on this sales tax collection and the expenses that we're starting to see is that for me, I look at the diesel prices that our departments have to spend on all the big heavy vehicles that have to go around and fill up with diesel is just a tremendous amount of money that the folks are having to comply with at the pump anymore, and also the public, what they're having to take into consideration for the prices. So I am not surprised by the number that is the percentage increase on the sales tax collection. I'm not surprised about that number decreasing either. So I fully support everything that we've been working on. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion to acknowledge by Solomon, a second by Nordstrom. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 8 in community development, approved preliminary fiscal year 20 CDBG-CV relocation funding recommendations. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll throw it over to Ms. Fisher, Director Fisher, and if she wanted to call in Michelle Schulke to give a summary.
Madam Chair, I would, if I could defer to Michelle, please.
I think that'd be wise. Okay, Michelle Schulke, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is requesting approval of the Investment Committee's recommendation to reallocate CARES Act money through the CDBG program. There was $450,000 previously allocated to subrecipients. The projects did not move forward, and so this process reallocates this to different programs to keep that money moving.
Are we good? Motion approved by Nordstrom. Second. Second by Lehman. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And the motion is carried. That takes us on to item number 9, which is interesting, to approve the 2021 population estimate. That is to Community Development Director Vicki Fisher.
And again, I believe that one of the councilmen pulled this one, and Kelly Brennan, our long-range transportation planner, is here to answer that question.
Okay, we'll go to Richie Nordstrom. Yeah, I know.
Thank you. I hopefully you were able to understand my questions with sending them to, I think I got it to your correct email address.
Yes, I did receive your email. And this year's a little different, so let me preface that because we did have a census in 2020. So we have to do things with a little bit of different methodology than we would typically. And so this is why it looks different than it would on a normal year. So what happened is that we had our official city population estimate in 2019, approximately 77,000 people. When the census came in 2020, it put us back to 74,703. So then we have to kind of offset the building stages and dates and timeframes that we look at for these building permits and demolitions and so forth. And that's how we come up with this, the new estimate for 2021 of 78,159. What will be interesting is when we have a correction year like this, what we call it, is the results look a little skewed because we are looking at them so differently. However, next year, I'm already working on the 2022 population estimate, and so it will be really interesting to see what the actual trend of population increase is without the census kind of muddling things up.
Thank you, Ms. Brennan. I appreciate the information. And my observation is that I've always felt that the 2020 census has been undercounted. I think it's been something like 5,000 people we missed it by, and for a variety of reasons. If I may, and then I'll turn it over to you, is that I believe that the Census Bureau was understaffed. We had to go through the COVID thing at the same time, so a lot of people were not able to respond to the census, and so that, in my opinion, that's one or two of the factors that were unable to get a shall I say, a correct population that we have in the city. But do I also understand correctly that there can be an application for a recount, if you will?
There can be, if the percentage that we believe, or if the percentage between what our estimate was and what the new census numbers give us is within a certain parameter, we can request a recount. We do not fall within that parameter, that would be appropriate at this time.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add on to this?
Nope, this was kind of just a funny year, and it always is after a census, so it'll be more interesting next year to kind of see what track we're actually on. You know, Rapid City is typically anywhere between over the past 10 years, we're at about a 1.4 to 1.5% population increase every year, and it's pretty strategically, there's never been anything this high or anything crazy except during a census. So we'll expect to hopefully go back to kind of more of a gradual set of numbers next year.
Number also can affect our availability to other additional grants. If we get to a certain population count, it gets us into another bracket for applying for additional grants.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
if I could assist.
Yeah.
That is correct. As an example, similar to the CDBG program, there's also a federal program known as HOME, the HOME program. We don't qualify for that right now because our population count isn't high enough.
Okay.
But we're getting close. We've got our eye on the ball, and as soon as we do, we will be coming to council to ask permission to join in that program, and Michelle Schulke will take on those responsibilities as well for distribution of funds. It'll be an exciting day for us when that happens.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield.
Do we have a motion on this? Did I miss it?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Lehman, second by Solomon. All in favor? Those opposed? And we have the motion is carried. Okay, that takes us out of consent items. And the first item up in Finance Department is number 10, introduction and first reading of ordinance 6542 regarding supplemental appropriation number 2 for 2022. And
To approve?
motion approved by Lehman, second by Nordstrom. All in favor? Okay, all opposed? And the motion passes. On to Alderman items, and we have a request to speak on this one. Mark Millar again. So we're going to discuss adjusting some of the Vision Fund toward increasing infrastructure funding, and this is brought to us from Jason Solomon and continued from the June 1st, 2022 Legal and Finance meeting. So, Mr. Millar, if you'd come up to the podium and express your thoughts on this.
I guess I was wanting to know what his position was, but I'm a little confused. The Vision Fund started out in Rapid City as a supplemental fund that was voluntarily voted in by the citizens, and it was supposed to be used for efforts towards betterment of life or quality of life in Rapid City. I know for some time, and at least during the last mayoral term, or the last mayor's term, we've been leaning on that more and more towards infrastructure, and I guess I would show, and I'd speak softly because I would be wondering how far this is going to go before somebody from the legislature questions us on how we're using a fund that they did not give us permission to create in the beginning, and it was in fact a voluntary vote of the public. We're lots of times, I'm sorry that I listen to what you guys do so much, but we're leaning on this economic growth as a betterment of the community. So we built the big box of air over here, $130 million. It'll never perform as the mayor told us it would. I see the airport wants $160 million for an airport that's barely ever performed. And that $160 million is actually more than what the original 2020 whole fiscal year budget for the city started out with before we got all this extra money for COVID that we're using for everything. But so now we're about to do it again. You got developers that are asking because maybe we're going to build $1 billion meat plant out here on the edge of the city. I think that's part of Kristi Noem's effort to spend $5 billion to bring meat plants into the state. I don't know if that'll ever take place, but some of you might want to realize that 8,000 head a day is about 300 semis of product that you'll be putting out there. But I really think we've got to lean away from using anything that's vaguely related to the Vision Fund under the pretense of economic development. Because there's three things that you can find a lot of in Rapid City right now: for lease signs, for hire signs, and plywooded windows. And I'm sorry, we don't need, we've already, and you've already entered into an agreement to build the replacement for the Emerald Tower, which is what that 6th Street project originally started out as and was originally rejected. You can't hire lifeguards. You can't hire garbage men. Why are we spending money that was earmarked for quality of life to develop an economy that we can't support already? You need to start spending that money on the people and not light fixtures and streets and curb and gutter. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Jason Solomon.
Well, thank you. First, I'm going to make a motion that we send this back to the CIP committee meeting for further discussion. If I can get a second and retain the floor.
Motion by Solomon, second by Lehman. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Millar, for your comments. You're actually right. Because of the nature that people voted the Vision Fund in, and it's used often as a way to fund our parks projects and things of that nature, which are part of our infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I mean government buildings, streets, all of that. The reason I put this on the agenda is for, first of all, the public input, which is exactly why you're here. You're providing the public input so that we hear it. Two, for us to have a conversation to say, is this a good thing for Rapid City? So I want to make sure that I hear from the council members while we're trying to balance the needs of what we have for quality of life. A lot of us would argue that quality of life extends beyond the parks, for example, although that's a huge part of it. So this is all really to begin the conversation, and that's why I have it on the agenda. That way we can make sure that the public is included in this process as we have this discussion. But for the lack of details of what that percentage is right now, when we have the Vision Fund with our sales tax, it's 42% goes to Vision Fund, 58 currently to our CIP. My question is whether that should be adjusted or not. And of course, I have an opinion, as a lot of people will. That's why it's on here, so that we can meet our demands. But I don't want to harp too much on it right now, but I think it needs some work at a granular level at another committee, and then to be presented back to this committee for further discussion with exact percentages if there are such recommendations. So with that, I yield.
Chair recognizes Richie Nordstrom.
I wasn't planning on talking this much this afternoon. I think this is a good discussion to have, so the public fully understands what the intent is and what the intent of Vision Fund is undertaking. And Mr. Malloy, I agree with you on a lot of your points. Some I don't agree with, but I'm hoping that where we disagree, we can still come to an understanding of our positions, and I call it civil discourse. So in essence, what I'm looking at is the discussion started at the CIP level, and I'm glad to see we're going to be taking it back to that level to have this further conversation on it. And the short version is that the Parks Department came in over budget on the 5-year plan for government buildings by about $2 million. And we're looking at different ways to be able to adjust that so that we can address the issues and the needs, and especially the needs that the Parks Department has to undertake because of a lot of the quality of life issues is getting handed off to the Parks Department. And they need to be the Parks Department needs to be made whole. And I'm trying to find ways to support that and working through the mayor's budgeting process. Hopefully we can find a resolution for that. It's going to take some other means on it, but if we can come up with something through the general fund budgeting process, in my opinion, we will not have to go to the vision funds to take that other little extra percentage or 2%, whatever it is that we're going to discuss for our CIP. So I'm willing to continue having those conversations with the mayor so that we can not damage our park system, because they are in severe need of a lot of things that we're missing out on, and we're just way behind on projects that are needed for the Parks Department. So hopefully we can find a different way of coming to a resolution other than just dipping into the vision funds. That's all I've got at this point. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and
Okay, I
Almost
guess
Senator.
I'm going to have to dip into that. Okay, no. This is why I would like to see a department of the arts that would be under the Parks Department. I think we need that. We have the Journey, we have the Doll, we have the Performing Arts Center. A lot of those need some infrastructure help that's never really available, and maybe could be available through a vision funds if we had an ardent advocate for the arts somewhere in the city. We've built these buildings, they're our responsibility, and then when they don't perform, we blame them. But we don't fund them enough to be really effective at what they're supposed to be doing. So a museum, we know, overall, will never make money. That's not what we're going to do. We don't make money probably on Fitzgerald Stadium or some of the other athletic things we've invested in. But, you know, with the arts, we have these fine buildings, and we hold them to a standard they can't achieve because we don't fund them at the level they need to be. So that's just my little soapbox on a department that would help distribute the vision funds in a way that would help those organizations continue to be prosperous and actually be able to do the kind of programming that everybody on this dais would like to see. And I've heard plenty of complaints. Oh, the Journey's just so boring. And it's not. It's our history. It's where the only place we have our history. We got to respect that. It'll go away. We know this. So somebody's got to take care of it for us. We have the Doll Art Center, which has an incredible collection of all the wonderful artists we've had. And that needs to be supported. And then we have the Performing Arts Center, which is doing just all kinds of things, whether it's theater or performances or music, whatever it is, all the time down there. They need support, they need a department, and although I'm leaving the council, I'd really like to see that addressed at some point. And with that, let's see here. Now I've forgotten, do we have Okay, motion to move it to CIP. Now, we have a CIP meeting this Friday, but that can't go to that, right? It'd have to go to the one after that. No? Okay, well, then I'd like to move this to the CIP meeting on the 18th, 17th? Excuse me? On the 17th, and that'll be moving this discussion to the CIP, back to the CIP, probably where it belongs on June 17th. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And it passes unanimously. Go to.
Is that a general scheduled council meeting open to the public?
It's open to the public. It's a community improvement program board. It's got one person from every ward on it. It's 5 people. It'll be at 8:30 on Friday morning, right here. Here. Okay?
Is any members of the council on that?
All members of the council, one person from each ward.
It's a subgroup of the council.
It is, and it's open to the public, of course. So you're invited. Yep. All right, so we're going to go to our last issue now. Request for, item 12, request from Josh Amundson to waive cleanup assessment fees at 327 Crestwood Drive. Move to deny by Nordstrom, second by Lehman. All in favor of the denial? Say aye. Aye. That clear as mud. All opposed? So that request is denied.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just as an update, we went out and reviewed the property again this morning in anticipation that he may be here to speak to this item since he asked that it be on the agenda. It appears that there is an ongoing violation still, so he will be receiving another citation to address those issues in the near future.
Okay, all right. I'd like a point of privilege, please. Sure. Okay, this is my last meeting to chair or be on for the Legal and Finance. I've been on Legal and Finance probably off and on because we did a different thing for about, I don't know, 6 months or so. But probably for 5 years, chairing more than once. And it's been my honor and privilege to do that and serve with some of the finest people I've ever known who really care about this city. It takes so much time to even prepare for one of these meetings that you just, I want the public to appreciate the service beyond just sitting here in these chairs, because we all do it. And so, yeah, I've really enjoyed my time here. Thank you for everything that this chair has provided for me, and just being on the council. I've done things from going to Japan for the Nico City Sister City thing, and last night I went on a rafting tour of Rapid Creek as a council person, just to see a new sport that's in town, and they want parks support to cut some of the trees and stuff out of the middle of the Rapid Creek so they can bring more people in to do rafting. So it's given me opportunity to do things, understand things, and see things that I never would have seen. And I would say to anybody out there that even has an inkling of thinking about running that this is really a great experience. And the people here, do we all agree? No. But do we leave as friends? It's kind of expected. That's our dignity right there. We've got to leave as friends and keep working together for this city. And we got Pat Roseland out there today, who's going to be taking my place soon, and I'm sure he'll be a great leader for Ward 5. And so I thank everybody for just your patience and time and energy that you put into Rapid City, the department heads especially, and just the great people that we have on our council. So thank you very much. Okay, Jason moves to adjourn, second by Lehman. All in favor? We are adjourned.